come from?
Is English actually your first language?
Does Islam hate women?
Don't your parents force you to wear that? Are you oppressed?
These are just a few examples of questions we've been asked as Muslim women living in America.
Zainab and I first met in the 4th grade at a small Islamic school, Toledo Islamic Academy. Because hijab was part of our school uniform, no one really felt out of place covering their hair every day.
Even at school-related events, such as field trips and fundraisers held out the school year, everyone was expected to dress modestly because of the Islamic nature of the school.
The first time I ever wore the hijab outside of TIA was my first day of school, my first day of 8th grade at a new school. The night before my first day at Maumee Valley, I impulsively marched up to my mother and said, "Mama, I'm a hijabi now," without giving much thought to what this would really entail. I immediately regretted my hasty decision after my first day of school, where I felt alienated as the only hijabi in the entire middle school. Even though Maumee Valley is an extremely diverse community, I still felt like my peers were afraid to ask me questions about Islam. I felt my peers were afraid to ask me questions about Islam because when they would try to do so, I would shy away from them and hesitate to answer them at all out of fear of judgment. It's sort of funny because I find that my friends and family use the word talkative to describe me. Why then was it so difficult for me to talk about my hijab, a major part of my identity?
Similarly, I also ended up leaving TIA but a few years after Sawsan. My sophomore year of high school, I transferred to Ursula Academy, where my sister and I were the only hijabis in the entire building. My younger sister being the first and only hijabi in the middle school, and myself on the path to being the first hijabi to graduate from St. Ursula. While many thought my hijab being unique, I wasn't so convinced. You could say I was insecure. When you first enter Ursula, there are these flights of stairs, very open and wide, leading up to the lockers. Every morning during my first year, I would walk up those stairs with the same thoughts running through my head. I wish I didn't have my hijab on. It wasn't that I was ashamed or embarrassed wearing a hijab and leggings under my skirt, but within, everything felt so off. Coming from an Islamic school with a class size of 8 students who dressed the same way as me, to a Catholic school with a class size of 97 students who knew little to nothing about what I was wrapping around my head, it was natural for me to feel out of place.
Islamophobia is the fear or hatred of the Islamic religion or of Muslims. 75% of Muslim Americans state that there's a lot of discrimination against Muslims in the United States. But often this discrimination is aimed at Muslims not explicitly, but subtly in the form of microaggressions or everyday statements that can either be intentional or unintentional, but communicate derogatory messages. Questions like, is English really your first language? What country are you actually from? And are you like from Saudi Arabia? Are examples of questions that many Muslims have been asked.
During my sophomore year in my world language class, my teacher would constantly ask me questions about where I was from. In a condescending tone, asking if I was really American, and even going as far as placing the question, what is Zainab's nationality at the end of students' study guides and tests? Despite the many similar instances that I faced, classes such as theology, I was fortunate enough to have very supportive teachers, asking me if I felt comfortable doing certain prayers in class, and even staying with me after school to help me understand information my classmates found so simple. Many Islamophobic encounters are the result of ignorance from others, from people who do not understand the true meaning of Islam, who are also too close-minded to learn.
It wasn't just the ignorance of others that had lasting impacts on our identities, however. Because of our history of being stereotyped, it's become almost natural for many Muslims to endure internal conflicts about how others perceive them. For example, I was terrified to join the lacrosse team my freshman year because it was a spring sport that would involve me needing to adjust the uniform so that I could still wear my hijab. I didn't know how my teammates would react, and I even almost didn't join the team out of fear of feeling singled out and judged. I failed to realize, however, that my fears were all self-inflicted. On the first day of practice, I felt welcomed by my teammates, and not once did I feel isolated. Even at games, when I would be wearing leggings under my skirt and an Under Armour under my jersey, I still felt empowered to be the only hijabi on the field. That wasn't until I encouraged Zainab to join her lacrosse team sophomore year, when we stood side by side on the field as the only hijabis, as St. Ursula destroyed Maumee. These experiences created for me an internal conflict, one where I was telling myself that I was not good enough and that my identity carried little importance. I now realized that I was blinded by my own fear of judgment, and as a result did not realize supportive and uncritical people that surrounded me.
You may be wondering, why are they telling us all of this? But it was these experiences that helped us with the question we could only answer after being broken down, stereotyped against, and isolated. Why do we wear hijab? Hijab is an Arabic word literally meaning covering. The veil or head covering acts as a show of obedience to Islam and is a symbol of modesty and womanhood to Muslim women.
69% of Muslim women have reported incidences of discrimination as a result of their wearing a hijab. But despite this, we both have had personal revelations about what hijab means for us. These personal revelations are what allowed us to embrace our hijabs instead of viewing them as a burden. The day that another student asked me about women in Islam for a school project was the day I realized why I truly wear the hijab. The student asked for help from my Muslim friends who didn't wear the hijab. Because I stood up and I had a voice. To those around me, I represented the entire Muslim community, and classmates were going to use my actions to base their judgments of Islam on it. This was inevitable, and I definitely don't blame them. But instead of viewing this as a burden, I found that hijab actually gave me the power to directly change my classmates' perception of Muslims. This gave me both the responsibility to act a certain way and a reason to further embrace my hijab.
On the other hand, I was probably one of the few Muslims that some people in my school have ever interacted with. It could have been out of fear why students never asked me questions about my religion. But last semester in my women's leadership class, I asked my teacher if I could talk about hijab. I explained to my classmates how hijab isn't just a piece of cloth wrapped around my head, but a chance for them to ask me questions and look at what's inside rather than what's out. Seeing how interested my classmates were, I reached out to the theology department, where I had the opportunity to talk to a few classes about Islam. The effects my speaking had on students and even teachers showed me the importance of initiating conversation. For if I continued to stay silent, it would have resulted in even more misunderstanding and stereotypes against Muslim women and Islam.
We aren't telling you all of this to make you feel pity or have sympathy, but instead to communicate a message about how important it is to protect your identity despite all of the backlash you may receive.
We both have had moments where we thought, what would it be like to not wear hijab or live entirely different lives without Islam, especially with the social influences that we experience today. But these experiences of being broken down are what helped us realize the importance of preserving our identities.
Because the hijab and Islam are such major parts of who we are, we always come back to the point that we're simply not ourselves without the veil covering our heads. For if we'd given into expectations and stereotypes from the media, we probably wouldn't have even felt brave enough to come here and speak to you all today. So, whether you're a minority who experiences racism,
someone who struggles with their sexuality,
a woman who endures sexism,
or someone who simply feels out of place,
do not let people take away a major part of who you are. Because at the end of the day, no one else's opinion matters but your own.
Each and every single one of you has a purpose, and it's important not to let anyone or anything hinder you from that purpose.
Thank you.